instruction. And this is just a position that is time for this, and we really need this. The benefits are, it would enhance teacher effectiveness, just providing us more time to do the thing that we specialize in, improving student success by having that time and planning that we can focus on our students, and also comprehensive family support, which we know is important for everyone, but especially for the ESL community. I'm going to fast forward there because of time, but in terms of the alignment with our comprehensive plan as a district, student success would be there, an improved district well-being in terms of creating a culture that sets high expectations and is clear, high quality teaching and learning for them, and also even the operational responsibility for students, teachers, and families. So in conclusion, we just really advocate for this ESL role. We're hoping that you will take a very serious consideration and vote yes to it for the sake of the students, the teachers, and our community. And then I'm also happen to be a parent in the district, and I just imagine if my kid came home from algebra and said, "Mom, I didn't really get my algebra lesson today because the teacher had to go in the back of the room and get this kid tested. But they said, we'll get to it later, and too often, I'm not proud of it, but I have to do plan B with the kids sitting in front of me because of new students that are coming. So that's a reality every single time we get a student. Sometimes I have to walk my class down to guidance, like, oh, we're going to go for a walk. So thank you for listening and have a good evening.
Thank you. Am I assuming correctly that these are colleagues?
Yes. I didn't want to take too much time.
No, understood. Thank you. I knew that, but I just wanted to emphasize that was the case. Thank you. Rin Caputo, Spring Garden Township. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. I am here once again to speak on behalf of the swim parents, community, and students. Right now, the students definitely wanted to be here tonight. We had a lot of discussion this weekend at our county championship meet about it. Unfortunately, they're at practice from 6:30 to 8:30 at York College. As you know, or you may not know, but the pool here on site has, pun intended, I suppose, deeper issues that are causing us to continue to be out of the pool. I think without being an educated engineer, just in listening to the feedback that we're getting, the existing pool continues to be an issue. And so I am here tonight to advocate that you vote for or in favor of the high school renovations with a new pool. I believe strongly that that is the safest, most economical, even if there is a short-term greater expense in building a new pool, the long-term benefit of that would outweigh retaining the existing pool and trying to make it work. I also think that as a community, hopefully, as we continue to come and advocate for the pool, you will see that we believe this pool to be an asset, not a liability. Right now, if as a businesswoman, our pool is in the liability column, and we want to move it to the asset column, and we feel like a new pool would allow us to do that, not only by giving us somewhere that we could generate revenue that would actually offset some of the costs of the pool, but actually open it up for services that would benefit the community. And I think that if we can come together as a community, and as I will continue to advocate, speak to each other in a way that is respectable and meaningful, even if our differences are great, that our children will see that we believe in their future and we believe in providing them the quality resources that they need to provide a quality education. I will close by saying this is not just a swimming thing. There are all kinds of students who use that pool, including the science department. So please vote in favor of a new pool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeff Kirsch, Springettsbury Township. Hi, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. I come here tonight, not exactly with public comments, but with public questions, which I know you have no obligation to answer. But, and was not able to make the previous meeting. At that time, the pool had just been closed, and there was uncertainty about what condition it was in pending a contractor examination. So whether that whether that information has become available at large or just that I've missed it, that's my situation. But it says that the administration seeks approval of one of the following options. Well, approval is from some other body or some other person. I think, is it more correct that you seek to resolve a decision about this because the alternatives are yours? If you are proposing to do that tonight, either the information that I don't have or that possibly you don't have either seriously concerns me. We have the two alternatives about, fix it or replace it. At previous meetings, I've heard that the pool is sort of constrained by the structure of the building around it, and that it needs to be larger perhaps, or, there's some other reason that it needs to be in a different location. I don't know if that's just a speculation or if that's a fact, but the thing is, I don't know that all of these things, the whole project or the pool part of it, the last cost that I was aware of is several years old, to my knowledge. And I don't know, that is an important part of all of this. And I don't know that that's been brought current for current information. And I know I'm running out of time, but the thing is, are these the only two alternatives? That pool is not, if we do a new pool, that's not going to show up overnight on a truck. That's going to involve possibly months or years, where if the old pool, whether can that be used in the interim or not, or do we need a hybrid program of fixing the old pool while we're waiting for the new one to be available? One other alternative for consideration that maybe has been consideration: do we have to bear the entire cost in this district? Are there other schools that are lacking in pool facilities where perhaps if we're going to have a large external pool, maybe we would consider a regional pool where we would get greater benefits, but other entities could also get benefits, but also contribute to the burden of the costs and maintenance of it. So I hope that there wouldn't be a rush to a decision tonight until these things have been fleshed out with adequate information and an intelligent comparison could be made, possibly among wider alternatives. Looks like my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Polanski, Springettsbury Township. Hi, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Madam President and the rest of the school board. Thank you. Many years ago in a previous life, I worked for Norwegian Cruise Line. Worked 4 different ships for them before I went on and got my master's degree and changed occupations. None of those ships are currently in their fleet. Each one of them has fulfilled its usefulness, even though they're about half the age, most of them, of our current pool. Why would they change from having a 30-year-old ship to building a brand new one? And the answer, I think, is quite simple. If you've ever been on a cruise, if you've ever been on an older cruise ship or a newer cruise ship, you realize that the expectations, the abilities, the possibilities are so much greater in new ships than they are in the old ships. Old ships had indoor swimming pools, believe it or not, because they were used across the North Atlantic. It's the same thing here, I think. We have an opportunity to go back, to keep the status quo, or to move forward with something that can meet the things that we might not even have thought of in our current understanding of what a pool can be used for, as we've already heard tonight. My daughter graduated here in 2017, and we were fortunate, she tried a number of different things in the school district. She tried tennis, she tried soccer, she played flute, she did drama club, she did lots of things until she kind of found what her niche was, what her gifts were. And sometimes it takes those things to be able to accomplish and discern what those gifts are. I think a pool is one of those things that helps people determine whether they're STEM oriented or STEAM oriented or any other type of orientation, but some people have gifts for swimming. And if nothing else, to have a lifelong desire to stay healthy, to stay fit, to teach other people to be safe so that they can have life-saving courses, as I took when I worked at a church camp many years ago. And I think we have an opportunity to not just think of what has been, but what can be. We spent millions of dollars to prepare a artificial turf football field over here, which is used for various things. I see it used quite often. I think the pool can be used in the same way for things that we have not yet envisioned, and it will bear some cost, some financial costs, but the benefits, which may not be as measurable in ways that we can put to numbers, they are when it comes to our children and the children that will come into this district in the next decades. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Quigley, Spring Goodsbury Township. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. I was going to talk tonight about the pool and taxes and maintenance. Back when I first started driving tractor trailer, you could run from California to Florida with 80,000 pounds, except one state, Mississippi. Now, you look at a map, it's very hard to get around Mississippi. It takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of fuel. Now, I don't know what Mississippi did to do that, but they thought they're going to get a lot more taxes. Well, the trucking industry that I knew of, owner operators and stuff, bought less fuel in that state, which means they lost tax revenue. Now you either go around, buy, like I said, buy less fuel. Now I say that for this. There's a lot of retirees. My wife and I are both retired. I'll be 69 in a month. Well, give it 10 years. There'll be a lot of people like me that are not going to be able to afford taxes. So you're going to have a lot of people moving out of here, which I assume, well, we'll just wait for the younger couples to move in. Now, when I had my tractor trailer, it wasn't the best looking truck, but it saved me money going through maintenance. I agree with that, with the pool, the new pool, but we're going to be guaranteed to have the maintenance on it. Because it seems like what I heard from everybody, that there was no maintenance on it for 20-some years. Now, can you guarantee us that there will be maintenance on it? That's what I'm worried about. Because if I put like with my truck, if I put a shiny new bumper on the front, it's not making me any more money. Maintenance saves me money. Instead of putting that shiny new bumper on, 2 weeks later, my transmission went out. And I had money to pay for that transmission. And I would just like to know, thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Schaefer, Spring Garden Township. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Much finger pointing has taken place with respect to the pool's recent situation. Those taken to task include the facilities director, the athletic director, the administration, and past and present school boards. Here are some questions I hear in the community. Can a pool last over 65 years without being taken care of and receiving regular maintenance? Could the communication from the administration and other district staff been better in the recent situation? Why do perceived conflicts of interest with one board member continue to abound? School board director / township solicitor / YMCA board chair, that includes the Graham Aquatic Center. With spending $32,000 on pool repairs in 2009-2010, the right thing to do when experts predicted it would extend the life of the pool another 10 years. And when the 10 years passed, the person who was responsible for the ruckus that prompted the long ago signs, "Don't take our pool," was serving on the school board. He chaired the Property and Finance Committee and also served as board treasurer for 6 years. Might his known stance of lacking the desire to upgrade or maintain the pool have influenced the attention for any pool needs during that time? And now here we are. Does any of this matter? What matters now is to move forward. I encourage board members to look at the light instead of the darkness surrounding the disinformation in this community. The existing pool had a good run, and now it's at the end of its lifespan. It's time to move on and do the right thing. Please vote to include a new pool in the high school renovation plan. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our first session of public comment. Next item on our agenda is discussion and action on board minutes. I'm seeking approval of the minutes from the regularly scheduled regular monthly meeting conducted on January 27th. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, then they can be approved as submitted. As far as the board president's report, it's my duty to inform the public that the board met in executive session at 6 p.m. on February 10th, 2025, for the purpose of discussing confidential student information and legal advice as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act. No official action was taken. I believe Nicole is absent tonight.
Correct. She does send her regrets. She's committed with some student responsibilities this evening and sends her best to the board, and she'll be eager to update us at the end of the month.
That is why she's here, so we understand that. That takes us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Krauser?
Thank you, Madam President. I do have 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first item on the agenda is specific to the high school renovations, and in particular the pool. And as all of us know, following many, many months of work where the board was analyzing district and building priorities, in August of 2023, the board authorized the administration and the current existing architect of record, Crabtree, Rohrbaugh & Associates, to proceed with plans on renovating the high school and pool. The planning and design team moved forward to develop the design that reflected those board priorities. As I shared last month, we did have Mr. Wentz to walk us through that. We're at a bit of a crossroads regarding the pool and the next steps in that design and planning process. So tonight, the administration is seeking approval to proceed with the design of a new pool or the authorization to renovate the existing pool. The administration is prepared to move and proceed with either option, and we're eager to hear the insight this evening from the board. However, before we begin, I would be remiss if I didn't address the last few public comments we've had over the last few weeks regarding prior boards and or administration's neglect of our 50-plus-year-old pool, and which is why we're having issues in the pool. That simply is an inaccurate statement. Both Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Kendig during the Property and Finance Committee will walk us through a timeline of the work that's been done and approved by prior boards and administration to keep the pool as operational as possible, to ensure that, to share that work that's been done to date, and the maintenance of that pool over the last few decades. So this evening, though, we are looking for direction. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Madam President.
Right. So based on the discussion we had at our last meeting on this topic, we had I thought, a very robust conversation. So I think going forward with this item A under the superintendent's report, we have two options. So I would just like to start with the first one, seek a motion to proceed with the planning and design for the high school's planned program renovations, including planning for a new pool at the high school.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is anybody brave enough to start the discussion?
I'll start. I'll just
Okay,
jump in. And
Mrs. Turner?
I'm just going to agree with the statement you just made. We had a great conversation, I believe, at the last meeting. And I personally don't have anything else to add. I'm in favor of that new pool. I don't feel like we should be putting a lot of money into the current pool. I have stated to Dr. Krauser, I know we need to come up with an interim plan because I don't believe the money we have set aside is going to last us until a new pool is ready. But I also am not a fan of pouring money, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, into a pool that we're no longer going to use. So while I'm in favor of the new pool, and as much as I would love for our students to be in our pool, I do think we should have further discussion at some point about what that means and how much money at the end of the day we're willing to put into that current pool before we go to York College and just have a long-term plan.
Right.
And if I may comment on
Sure.
that, that's currently exactly what's happening. We're getting an assessment of the current situation, circumstances, and then seeking recommendations of what that means, both short-term as well as long-term. Mrs. Kendick and her team will be providing an update at the Property and Finance Committee. I think we're hopeful that we'll get some of those updates by that time. If you want to add to that.
I don't have much to add. We're working with people to come in and do. We've had some testing done. We've gotten that information, but they're not the people that would actually fix the issues that they were finding the information behind the issues to pinpoint the issues. And now we're working with people to come in and assess what would that cost. So hopefully I'll have information by next Tuesday. If not, by the first meeting in March, we plan to at least have that information so we can assess short-term, long-term options and what they'll cost.
So in summary, that is our priority, to determine what the financial ramifications would be for short-term, 1 year, 2 year fixes in their interim.
Other discussion? Dr. Sullivan?
Yeah. So, I will support whatever is the will of the board as it relates to either option, but I'm supportive of option 2 at this point. That's predicated on the renovations to the pool being actual 20-year plus fixes to the pool. No more Band-Aids, like even major renovations to the pool, but keeping the pool essentially where it is, as opposed to shifting its location somewhere on the side of the property. I would never advocate for anything that steps back from the status quo with respect to our swimming programs. But I have a lot of significant concerns about the macro environment in which we are operating and within which these construction projects, actually both construction projects, are taking place at this point. So back in August of 23, I voted to proceed with planning and design options for the intermediate school. I have supported all the steps necessary to move that planning process along. I was also a member of a board which back in 2021 had advised our architects and the administration after another process had played out to that point that the plans being presented at that time were too expensive and that they should start over. So the macro picture for me has changed over the last 3 months. It's very hard to determine what will be the actual steps taken by the administration in Washington. But I have a number of concerns if, in fact, all the proposed policy changes are executed. I am concerned about our federal funding. We get about $1.1 million annually from the federal government, much less than other districts. And while we hear discussions about block granting those funds, that will mean Harrisburg makes those decisions. And that is the same group of folks who let us get the short end of the basic ed formula for several decades. It is also almost certain that if changes in federal funding create an emergency situation in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia or other knock-on effects, we will get less of that money than we would have otherwise. Some of you may know we've got a new incoming PA Secretary of Education, which will continue to keep the state level forecast muddy for some time. Other than that, we have mostly the same cast of characters in the state assembly, notwithstanding hopeful movement around the budget proposal from the governor. I would predict really that no further help is on the way for cyber charter reform, and I think we've really seen our last favorable change to a state budget that will pass for a while. On the subject of trade policy, I'm already seeing price increases and lower projected unit availability in specialty electronics manufactured or assembled in the U.S., including foreign source components, as a result of potential tariffs in the future. That is just one sub-industry, but we have a lot of precision manufacturers in York County, and that might be a bellwether. I would anticipate increases in the cost of any construction materials that have imported components, and of course some impact on regular district operating costs as well. I would expect some rough times ahead for local employers who do a lot of exporting, as they are potentially exposed to retaliatory tariffs. Our local healthcare industry might also see the impacts of reduced reimbursement rates from CMS. And as I brought up last time around, if you're familiar with any of the proposals that are floating around the House Budget Committee at this point, they're talking about taxing nonprofit hospitals. And of course, some of our suburban families are federal employees or contractors. We also have higher educational institutions as employers in the district, which may be negatively affected by policy changes with educational loans or other federal programs and may shed staff. I don't know what direct effects to expect on the supply of teachers here in Pennsylvania, but I can't see it being enhanced except by changes to certification requirements. Throughout the, at this point, year of public comment on this project, I've heard a number of strong arguments in support and opposition. The hardest arguments to counter among those in opposition have been from community members on fixed incomes or otherwise the economic margins. I'm afraid that I don't see much good news for those folks, apart perhaps from some changes to taxes on Social Security benefits. But this will not help our younger families that consist of two parents working hourly jobs. We may see changes eliminating or curtailing school lunch programs that are currently easing some families' food budgets. We have also now seen a proposal in the House Budget Committee to alter the tax treatment of income from municipal bonds, which is not a good thing if you're a unit of local government that floats debt issues to pay for things like school construction. So I hope that I'm wrong about every single one of those concerns, but my advice to public school districts in the U.S. now is to batten down the hatches. I think our steps in this moment and for the foreseeable future should be smaller and slower and should consist of a series of phased renovations to existing buildings that represent 20-year fixes. I think CRA can be rescoped to that. I think that Fidavia can be rescoped to that. So, as I said, I would never advocate for a position that would result in our swim program and everybody who uses the pool, not just our swimmers at the high school, getting less than they have now. But I can't support option one. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Mr. Robinson?
Well, yeah, I'm gotta get over being depressed as all hell. So I'll be more generalized in my comments.
And I wrote them down so that I stay focused. Because it seems these days York Suburban board meetings would not be complete without high drama. Some of our fellow citizens appear to deliver veiled threats of dire consequences as they elucidate their intentions to be condescending. Accusations of bad faith and skullduggery abound. Local nonprofit tax-exempt institutions are pilloried for being local nonprofit tax-exempt institutions. The architect representing Crabtree Rawbaugh and the district superintendent are subjected to abusive insults, questioning their integrity and ethics. At times, the orations of Suburban's board meetings are comparable to the exchanges in the U.S. Congress. Some of us find these displays entertaining. Others find them embarrassing. Is there an alternative to the steady stream of imperious, scornful expostulations from those of us who are intoxicated by the exuberance of our own dramatis personae? Perhaps there is. No doubt the name Douglas MacArthur is known to most of us here. General MacArthur, who was no stranger to being condescending and imperious, believed in expressing praise in public and criticism in private. Anything else could be interpreted as shameless grandstanding. So in the spirit of General MacArthur, let me state publicly, I have every confidence in the district's plans for the future, every confidence in Dr. Scott Krauser, and every confidence in Mr. Seth Wentz and Crabtree Rawbaugh to provide the district with plans for a new pool. Thank you.
Anybody else want to weigh in? Well, I'll just share briefly my vision for the pool. I do support, as I've said before, a new pool. I'd like to see us add swimming to the physical education and wellness curriculum for both elementary and high school students. I'd like to see us offer boating and canoeing certifications, perhaps scuba lessons. I'd like to see us use this new pool for family swim nights, fitness swim, time for the community during non-school hours. I'd like to see it be a community center used by members of the public. Basically have it somebody in the pool all the time. I believe we have an obligation to provide future generations with the best possible facilities our district can provide. And I'm convinced if we don't build the new pool now, it'll never happen. Future generations really shouldn't be saddled with an antiquated facility forevermore. And it's been said, throwing good money after bad, repairing. The existing pool may not be the best expenditure either. I'm well aware we have an obligation as a board to optimize the limited financial resources that we have, and I'm of the opinion that this is a good expenditure for the good of the community, for current students and for future students and generations. So that's where I stand. Anybody else want to weigh in before I ask for a vote? Okay, so just to clarify, the motion was to proceed with the planning and design for the high school's planned program renovations, including planning for a new pool at the high school. Could we have a roll call vote, please, Mrs. Kending?
Mr. Desai?
Yes.
Mrs. Fryrick?
Yes.
Dr. Hessen? Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. San Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Schrader, Dr. Sullivan, Mrs. Turner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-1.
Okay, thanks very much. Dr. Krauser?
Yeah, item B on the agenda this evening under my report is the administration recommends the board approval of the recommendation for the expulsion of student ID number 3923214766 following a hearing conducted by the board appointed hearing officer, Dr. Lorfink. The recommendation is in response to violations of the York Suburban Code of Conduct, and I'm seeking a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Guess we can't really discuss it publicly. Are there votes to the contrary? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my report.
Mrs. Kindig, Business Office Report.
Thank you, Madam President. The first item on the agenda, the administration is recommending board approval of the resolution establishing compensation applicable to the elected tax collectors who collect school real estate taxes starting in January 1 of 2026 and going through the December of 2029.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, are there any votes to the contrary? Okay, hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you. Item B, the following business office items are being presented for discussion. They will be recommended for approval during the regular monthly meeting scheduled for February 24th, 2025. First item is the administration is recommending board approval of the proposed York County School of Technology 25-26 budget. No, just for discussion.
So I have a discussion.
Yes.
So do we have,
Oh, sorry.
do we have comparison for the prior years?
So the York Tech budget is going up 5.65%. It's a total increase in their budget of just over $2 million. Yes. What other comparisons are you looking for? The part. Okay.
And I can comment in the majority of that increase is to extended transportation. As you know, the York County School of Technology services all the schools in York County. And there are some students that are upwards of a 2-hour drive. So the board did determine that adding an additional, I believe, 2 buses was reducing the majority of the ride for students in the Hanover and Southwestern school districts substantially.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Item 2, the administration is recommending board approval of the proposed York Adams Academy 25-26 budget. And that is a 5.3% increase in total expenditures over last year. They are proposing a $100 per seat increase in their pricing. And we currently have, I believe, 15 seats. 18. Oh, that's right. We purchased an additional 3, but I think we're looking at 15 going for next year. Item number 3, the administration is recommending board approval of the services agreement with New Story Schools to provide an educational and related services described in the IEP of a pupil at a daily rate outlined in Addendum A of the attachment to begin January 29th of 2025 and extend through August 14th of 25. And those rates are comparable to the current rates that we have with other New Story agreements that we have. So
Just a question about that. Is that an agreement we have to renew then every year, assuming the student wants to go there the following year?
yes, there are multiple agreements as we assess the needs of those students that we place there.
Okay. And I saw like there's different there's low, medium, high rates. Do we know? I didn't notice if it said in there which this one was for.
I am not sure which student this is for, so I'm not
Okay.
sure where that student is placed in that section.
Can we have an explanation, I guess, of what the difference is?
Sure.
I believe Dr. Campbell's here this evening. She can maybe
If
comment.
not tonight, next time's fine.
Right.
We can look to have the description of what those, what
I'm just curious what
places a student in which of those categories. Sure.
right, because there's, obviously a different in price. So I'm wondering what the difference between those levels is.
Just for clarification, are you seeking information in the services provided or how many students are at each rate?
The services provided at each rate.
Any other questions on that?
Are they attending school over the summer? Is that why it's running through
That's for ESY. Am I correct, Sherry?
the school year?
Yes, that would be ESY services as well.
Extended school year.
So I'm sorry,
ESY is
thank you.
extended school year.
Okay, and the final item on the agenda is the administration recommends board approval of the agreement with the Intermediate Unit 13 to provide an electronic tool to process all Act 168 forms required for new hires at a rate of $5 per application, beginning April 1st of 2025 through March 31st of 2028. This is a renewal of the of this agreement. It is not an increase in price. We currently pay that, and Act 168 is a background check that we're required to perform on future hires.
Any questions? Any discussion on that? Guess not.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Dr. Sullivan, Academic Standards and Curriculum Committee.
Thank you very much. Tonight we have an administrative update from Dr. Furman. Maybe we should have the jazz band have a combo here to play folks in and out
There we go.
from the back of the room.
Dr. Furman, I think you're going to need to turn that microphone on. I think it's been turned off. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to start by giving you a couple of different updates. Over the past couple of months, there have been just different discussions that we've had. So I just wanted everyone to know it hasn't fallen on deaf ears that, go ahead, spots, please. Thank you. That for later this spring, Mr. Henry and I are working on providing everyone with an update on Chromebooks, not just from the technical and the budgetary side of it, as well as the educational and the learning side of it. So that's one piece we're working on. Later this summer, I'll be making a presentation about the school librarian and what her role is within our district, just so that knowledge is power and to make sure that we all have that knowledge. But then in October, when I presented the academic data from the previous school year, one of the things that I asked the board members was, what additional measures of student success would you like to see? And several of you shared some great ideas. So I just wanted you to know that Dr. Ellis is working on a means to track the participation rates in all of our clubs and sports and activities. And so we should be able to get you that data at the end of the school year. He's also working with Mrs. Foreman on developing an alumni survey. So that'll be something that we'll be able to distribute more widely. And then our building principals will be working with our students to get feedback from them, just more of that, how they're feeling about school day in and day out. Okay. One of the other things that was asked of me was that one of you wanted to know, how have interventions changed students' paths? And I feel like I posed this question to the building principals to have them help shape where I went with this. And Dr. Jackson reflected on her time when she was a 10th grade English teacher here in this building. And she shared that one of her early in the year activities was to get to know students as a reader and as a learner. And she had told me that many times kids would say with great pride that they were in a college prep class, but did you know, while I was at East York or while I was at Indian Rock, I received reading intervention services. And so I thought that that was a great story, but I also know we're driven by data and that we would like some numbers behind that. So what I did is I looked up the enrollments for our current college prep classes here at the high school. And then I cross-referenced that for those students when they were in the 3rd and 4th grades, our intervention rosters at East York and Indian Rock. And I was able to cross-reference and go through that. And so the data basically is we have currently have, well, when I say currently, I pulled these numbers in November. So in November, we had 123 students in our 10th grade English college prep classes. And 19 of those students, or 15.4% of them, received reading intervention when they were in either the 3rd or 4th grades. As I started cross-referencing the numbers, though, something jumped out at me. So I went down a different rabbit hole, and then I took a look at how many of those students, of those 123 students, were actually even our students in 3rd and 4th grade. So then I went back and I pulled their enrollment histories of when they enrolled, and this was a bigger standout number to me, that out of those 123 students in a 10th grade college prep English class, only 77 of them were enrolled in our district between the K to 4 years. That's a significant enrollment change. So then I went back, and 19, if we go back to that original number of, on that list, 19 students receiving reading intervention services, that would be 24.7% of the kids who were actually enrolled in our school district at that time. So then once I shared that number with the reading specialist, because of course, once they shared their rosters with me, they were all excited and they were like, well, what about the honors classes? And I'm like, well, all right, what about those honors classes? So we have 29 students enrolled in 10th grade honors classes, again, back in November of 2024. And 2 out of those 29 students received reading intervention in the 3rd and 4th grades. So when you ask about our interventions that we have and how do they change the paths for students, I believe that it builds the confidence that they need and it builds the skills that they need to be successful in their high school careers and beyond. So that's a student story for you. Not the face I wanted to give you, but still some good data for you. All right. I have a special guest to sit up here with me in case you had any questions. This is Mr. Greenholt.
Hi, welcome.
Welcome.
So Mr. Greenholt has played a number of different roles in our work with the K-8 math curriculum. He is the math specialist at the middle school. He serves as one of the members of my team of curriculum coaches. And he has also been a curriculum writer in this process. He filled in and he was the writer for the 6th grade team. So if you have questions, he has multiple roles here, that multiple lenses that he could lend to answer your questions. But thanks to the 24-25 school calendar, we've had a great deal of time to work on curriculum. And so moving forward in the next couple of board meetings, I anticipate being able to bring you stage 1 curriculum. And typically what we do is we bring you the standards for your approval in an effort to be more transparent with everyone. And with our writing system that we have for our curriculum, I'm able to present the full stage 1 of everything that we intend to teach, those identifying those desired results, as we say with our understanding by design framework. So my goal is during the planning meetings to present you with the stage 1 curriculum for your review, to ask some initial questions. And then the hope is that we can come back at the voting meetings then. And once we do earn your approval, we would go ahead and we would post this information and fully adopt it and begin the realignment process and all of those things. So to that end, print it out for you. And it's linked in the presentation so that the public will be able to see it, reference it. But I also recognize that, old school is still cool sometimes, and sometimes we need the paper to reference. I wanted to make it accessible to everyone. So probably that should be something I survey you about moving forward, if you're happy with electronic copies or if you prefer to continue to get the paper copies. So to that end, what you have in front of you is the stage 1 curriculum for K-8 math. The why behind the changes that we made are all tied back to the curriculum audit that I've talked to you about previously. Looking back at the audit highlights, their directions for recommended priorities for action is to identify and determine prioritized standards to support curriculum development and revision, update the written curriculum to essentialize and align to current PA core standards, update assessments to align to current standards and assessment anchors, and update current assessments to show more rigor and relevance beyond Webb's depth of knowledge level 1 and 2. I haven't presented the stage 2, those assessments to you, but what you have there is the stage 1 work. And on the left side of the graphic organizer, those are the Pennsylvania standards and eligible content. And teams of teachers worked meticulously. There were 2 teachers selected at each grade level by their principals. Most of this work was completed last school year as far as the stage 1 work goes. Those 2 teachers worked with a math specialist from their grade division to make sure that there was a full understanding. And then from there, the content coordinators looked at the work for coherence to make sure that we had alignment and through lines. And then the curriculum coaches also reviewed the work, first of all, to make sure that it fit with our understanding by design format, but the curriculum coaches have been really vital in making sure that we've had alignment between stage 1 and stage 2. And so what that means is that stage 1 is they looked at those standards unpacked. The knowledge and skills that you see on your graphic organizer should tie to those standards. Sometimes you have more knowledge and skills because our teachers are like, well, you know what? A student needs to know A and B before we can measure them at this level for C. And so they've added those items in there to make it clear for their colleagues who are providing instruction. From there, the teachers used assessment tables to build their stage 2 assessments. And that was where the coaches came in and the content coordinators to go back and make sure that there was an alignment on the assessments to this newly written curriculum. I can share with you one of our growing pains, one of the things that we've worked to do is to find that sweet spot, because we had to move away from saying that this resource written by a publisher in some other state far, far away from Pennsylvania who is not measured by our standards. We needed to make sure that we were able to align to how our students and what our students are being assessed on. It's not to say we still have resources that we are purchasing that are available to the staff, but there were some growing pains with that recognition of that we can't just flip through a teacher's manual day by day, page by page, and be assured that we were going to get the outcomes that we were working towards. So with that, I will stop talking and give you the opportunity to ask Kyle questions or no.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have, thanks for this presentation. It's a lot of data to go through. So I'll have follow-up questions, but one question I had for K and Juan is there's a system user. Does that mean somebody was removed that was part of this committee or team?
So sometimes when we have technical glitches, I reach out to my friends at EduPlanet 21, and they had to go in and rewrite some script to personalize the templates for us and the things that we needed. So wherever you see a system user on there, that probably means that Jared or one of the other technicians had to help us out on something on their end.
For grade 1, it's a duplicate of grade K for my copy. I don't know if anyone else has.
Well, that would be most unfortunate. Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. I will work on that. I'm not sure what happened there, Mr. Desai.
No, just the one was a duplicate. The rest was okay.
Just the first 2 pages. Bless you.
Did you have further?
No, so once I review it, I'll have some follow-up. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else, Mrs. Turner?
So as we're going through, when I'm looking at the teams that are listed there, do we have anyone on any or all of those teams who have a degree in curriculum writing? Or
I would. So what would happen was potentially there could be a degree, there could be a master's in curriculum and instruction. That would be the more likely culprit. I don't know if our data management system could pull who has a master's in that or not. But I can tell you, as far as the process goes, Mrs. Turner, one of the things that we do is early on, the teachers understanding by design the framework that we use to write our curriculum. What it does is it provides a systematic, but yet also a flexible approach. And so the standards are provided to us, you know, like we're not writing those, we're not. So it's a matter of really giving them the time to do the hard work of looking at the nouns and the verbs within those standards. And those nouns become the knowledge that we want our students to learn, and the verbs become the skills. And so what happened is, historically, we haven't asked our teachers to do that. We've simply said, with this resource, with this manual sort of thing. And so sometimes part of that journey, it is hard work, but they are supported throughout it. Nobody does that work alone. They're given feedback. There's constant collaboration and discussion on, what do you think this means? I interpret it as this. And then different coaches, content coordinators come in and out.
do you think at the end of this, should our goal be that our teachers, because when it comes to math, I know I think back and I remember one teacher that changed it, that made me fall in love with math and actually like it and have fun in class. And I know if you don't have that experience, a lot of kids just think they don't like math. Some people don't ever like it until they got to college. One of my good friends is a math teacher in Spring Grove, and she hated math until she got to college and got that one person who knew how to teach her math. And I've heard from some parents that we have teachers who are very reliant on handouts, and that there's not a lot of actual teaching in some classrooms. And I'm hoping that at the end of this, it's not just curriculum that we're changing maybe the behaviors in the classrooms to impact the kids, because as good as the curriculum is, the teacher has to be just as good or better.
I don't disagree with a thing that you said there, but before we can train the teachers on how to update and improve or adjust or adapt, whatever the case may be, their delivery, we have to have an agreed upon body of what. And so that's why we're starting with this foundation of the curriculum piece. And then by aligning it, by building assessments that we know are aligned to that proper depth of knowledge, then it becomes that how do we build that bridge to get from what it is to get from that curriculum to what we want students to be able to do, to be able to show. And so, yes, we do need to provide that professional development. And we've tried to sprinkle a little bit of that in along the way, because it's hard to build the airplane while you're flying it. But at the same time, I recognize we can't wait until the curriculum is written, approved, all of the assessments are done before we can address professional development. And so last school year, what we did is we contracted with the IU, and the teachers learned about the CRA, concrete, representational, and abstract levels of learning math. And from there, they also spent a day on what is called the science of math. And so, but again, those were really kind of I don't want to say one-hit wonders, but unfortunately, professional development education is a lot of times you sit, you get, and everything moves on. So they did get a taste of a little bit of sit and get of where we're headed. But once we have this agreed upon body of what we're trying to learn in that progression, that we're all on that same page of, then we can be purposely focused on that professional development, and the teachers, how they make meaning of it and how they apply it, the exact same things we want for our students.
Okay. So one brief observation I'll make is that the the student stories slide, your examination of where those kids started, and it really brings to mind the degree to which, when we look at performance, we are living with curriculum and instruction decisions that are made in other school districts, which should temper all of our expectations somehow that there is a direct dose response relationship in what we're trying to accomplish in a large, complex educational system where kids are going back and forth between districts. Okay. I was going to brag on EduPlanet, and then my colleague pointed out some odd behavior of the reporting output from the database. But I would point out that EduPlanet, this is not a dead pile of paper, right? This is reporting output from a database. So what's in here is the curriculum for math that has been systematically broken out into individual data elements and put into the EduPlanet database content management system, whatever it is you want to call it. And that gives you the ability to do things like look across curriculum across years to determine where and when certain concepts like making tens. You could search the database and say, where are we reinforcing the skill of making tens? And you can do that for every piece of the curriculum for the district that is in the EduPlanet system. So, and this came up in recent conversations about the librarian and about media literacy and about, you have the ability to step back from the overall curriculum collected and put into the database systematically to be able to determine where, for example, media literacy is covered in other areas of our curriculum. So it supports those sorts of questions from board members and the public about where we do things and when we do things and how often we do things. And I just wanted to compliment the administration for the foresight of everybody involved in coming up with this system or buying into the system that would allow us to take the systematic approach to doing things. I know that is supplemented by a lot of the work that you and your team have done on the assessment framework for assessments that we have, where you're interrogating the assessments that we do and seeing how those things line up to what's considered appointment or important on the state level assessments that we do, so that areas of emphasis, if they're out of alignment, can be brought back into alignment. So we've got some fairly powerful tools available to our team, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Just have one follow-up.
Sure.
So this is a lot of data for K through 8. Would you be able to summarize our current curriculum change percentage-wise to what we're changing here? Are we like throwing everything out of the window and starting over? What's the range of change that students can expect or teachers can expect?
I'm going to take the first part and then you correct me and add to it. Fair?
Sure.
Okay. So I would say currently with everyday math, all you hear about is that spiral, right? And that there has this long held belief that if we're going too fast, if we're not going deep enough, that students will get it later. And when Dr. Krauser brought Heidi Hayes Jacobs in, who's a renowned curriculum expert, she compared some curriculum, everyday math, to what I would call the scrambler ride. Are you thinking you know what I mean? It's that ride that zips you around. Mm-hmm. And so what we're doing with our curriculum is we're taking more of a mastery approach to it. And so teachers will be going deeper in more of a progression. There are still some really great parts of everyday math that our teachers say are phenomenal and that they want to be able to continue to use. It's just unpacking it a little bit and making it more linear.
Yeah, I don't think it's a wholesale change of what students or teachers are expected in the math curriculum. I think it's a more focused approach to what we're asking students to learn, a more meaningful approach to mathematics that we're asking students to learn. And we're just really looking to give the staff direction as to what they are teaching. Just even in my conversations with some teachers, even in the K1, they're realizing they're trying to push our students too far. They're asking them to do too much, which means we can't even dive deeply into those making 10 skills, counting to 20 skills, having the students master such fundamental ideas in mathematics before they're moving on to the higher grades. When I looked at this, we want to map out how we want to teach, what our teaching philosophy is. And our philosophy is meeting those standards for our children, and then finding a resource that matches to that philosophy, which is what we are doing as we unpack these standards and as we develop our stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3. We're really looking to make a meaningful curriculum and have a tool that's even a new teacher could come in with and have a roadmap to success for our teachers and our students.
Thank you.
I'd like to just comment on that closer, as Mr. Greenhold said. Two additional important pieces is that the exceptional work of the teachers. How do we capture what has been done and developed over many, many years in a space that we can help a new teacher coming in? And with regards to that ride, as Dr. Furman said, you saw in the data when we have students that are coming in and coming out, it's very difficult to pinpoint what part of that skill was missed. As Mr. Greenhold looks at that progression and much more, we can see, and as was mentioned, that intervention is necessary at all stages of the way. So being able to put a pin in those exact spots allows us to be a little bit more surgical in how we're addressing those skills from each group.
If I may, as a math specialist and an interventionist, especially with a spiraled curriculum, it is very hard for our specialists to target into a skill that a student has a deficit in when they're being faced with 5 different skills in a week. Which of those exact skills is creating the gap? Well, when we focus on this more linear progression that we're looking at, standards and mastery progression, we could say they are having problems making 10s. We can hit that with a targeted progression and follow-up instead of spiraling back all the time to it. So they're being thrown, 10 different skills. Which one do we target first?
And one last one is under established goals, under standards. I'm assuming the number that's referenced after each one is from the core standards, or is it something else that we're tracking internally?
That would be the state coding.
Okay.
Yep.
So that way in our database, we can explicitly target and pinpoint. All right.
I could search by place value, or I could, if I had a specific standard, for example, if I get, if I take a look at our PSSA results and I'm like, what is up with this? I can pinpoint where that is taught, where it's learned. Then I can, are we assessing it? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's what I was hoping.
Mr. Robinson?
Dr. Herman, I have a two-part question. And let me preface my remarks by saying I was a history major. Math wasn't my thing. But in listening to your comments and Mr. Greenhold's comments, I'm thinking that what you have presented us with really speaks to some of the points that Dr. Sullivan has made in the past. And not so much as us approaching a school of education to create curriculum pertinent to Pennsylvania, but basically taking materials and customizing them for students at York Suburban. Would that be an accurate or a fair assessment?
I would say yes. Oftentimes I talk about the resources that we are providing teachers. We need to give them a backbone. Their time is very, very valuable. And so if we have that common backbone of a starting point, but then to also trust their professionalism, their training. We have so many veterans teachers on staff who have taught the same grade level, who have seen that band, that age range over such long time, to give them the space and the freedom to recognize that they need something a little bit different for this group or for that group, and to give them that freedom within that form, that flexibility within that larger structure. That is the goal.
So part B of the question is this, and I'm going on the premise that this material is unique to York Suburban.
Yes, no, maybe.
Okay. In that case,
I'm not sure how other school districts unpack. Not everybody buys into understanding by design as their framework. And so with that, not everybody, you afforded our teachers the time, you gave us the permission to hit the pause button last year. You gave us permission, you as a board gave our teachers permission to go slower and to go deeper into this. So, and seeing how hard that those teachers worked, I might be a little bit biased, but I'm pretty sure our stage one is better than other stage one you're going to see out there.
well, on that basis, then here's the end part of a loaded question. Do you think members of the, let's take a specific House committee, the House Committee on Education of the General Assembly, has any idea that this material exists? And if not, should they?
They know it exists. I'll go back to something that Dr. Sullivan has said numerous times. With over 500 school districts, the time and energy and financial investment that we made to create that curriculum, I would suggest that if the state's going to give us the standards, shouldn't they also give us the curriculum to meet that?
Oh, sorry.
I would say yes, but I'm not sure I asked the question correctly. I'm going on the premise that they have no idea this is around. That what you've done with it, how you've customized it.
I would think that's probably fair.
Okay. And should they know that this is a school district that is taking the initiative to customize a curriculum to achieve results? It's an open-ended question. Get back to me if you want to.
I think it would be good to show them the investment that we make in teaching and learning.
I only ask because it might come up in the legislative report. Thank you.
Mrs. San Martin?
Thank you for that presentation. So my question is, will the district still provide interventions for students who, unlike their peers, are struggling? And likewise, enrichment for students who learn the concepts more quickly than their peers?
Yes. There's still going to be math specialists in the K through 5 buildings, especially focusing on the intervention for our struggling students. We have interventions now in the middle school. We also have an intervention period for every student, which provides enrichment as well as remediation for those who need it. Specifically math, we have offering math counts now for our students who are succeeding. I just delivered the AMC 8, which is a math competition that almost 60 of our students volunteered to take. And we're going to look to make that an annual thing, as long as I can provide that. And luckily, Dr. Sneddon and Mr. Louderman were gracious enough to provide funding for that through our budget. I'm looking to hopefully extend that to the high school as well, because it is something that it can go on transcripts for colleges if students really succeed. It's a very difficult competition, but those are some of the things we're looking to do to enhance the curriculum and the offerings, specifically in math.
And to go along with that, so we've talked about stage 1, we've talked about the stage 2 assessment. Where our teachers really want to be is stage 3. they want to be working on that common lesson planning of what do you do when they don't get this, or how did you get those results, what did you do? And so a lot of what you just described there would go into that stage 3. So each year teachers aren't banging their head against that wall, reinventing wheels, that the person right next door might already have a great groove going there for them. And so we want to get that sort of thing included in our stage 3.
And I'll just add to that. I was at Valley View today celebrating the 100th day and actually visited Mrs. Corse's class, who was using a new intervention that's consistent. So really excited to see those math interventions still happening. I know she was excited, and there was a mixed level of excitement from the students in the class, but utilizing those interventions.
Anybody else? Thanks to both of you. Mr. Greenholt, nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well, Madam President.
Dr. Furman, as always, thank you.
Thank you. And I will figure out what the daylights happen with grade 1. I'll get the link fixed on the slides before Mrs. Potts makes them available to the public. And I will make sure that you're emailed a correct version of grade 1.
Thank you.
Thank you both. That concludes my report.
Mrs. Spryrick, Communications.
Yes, I'm pleased to announce that the Communications Committee has scheduled an in-person meeting to review the vendors for the new website and mass communications platform. This meeting will be held on Wednesday, March 12th at 5 p.m. in the boardroom at the Education Center. Mrs. Furman has been good enough to get this scheduled, and she's excited to share with us some of the information that she has gotten from the various vendors who responded to our RFP. So we will see that this gets on the school calendar and on the appropriate places on the website, and that everybody is made aware of that date, March 12th. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
What time?
5 o'clock.
Thank you.
Mr. Robinson, Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. You have before you the personnel report. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any votes to the contrary? Hearing none, this can be considered a unanimous vote.
Before I conclude, I just want to share a couple of pertinent statistics from the last personnel meeting regarding the complexity and the challenges we face as a district regarding faculty. If I understood correctly, over the next 3 years, 10% of our faculty will turn over. Within the next, 1 to 3 years, 10% will turn over. Within the next 10 years, 50% of our faculty will turn over. And the reason I bring that up is, I think Dr. Sullivan alluded to it, the challenges we're going to face recruiting teachers going forward. Especially as younger people are looking over the field. Those that go in, I think, are going to take into account the educational environments of the distant districts that are trying to hire them. The time was when my wife went to suburban, there was no competition in this district or in this county for the best district. And I think people coming into the profession recognize that. These days, it's different. And I think young people coming into the field are going to take a lot of different factors into account. And one of those factors is going to be the environment in which they're being asked to teach. So the only reason I bring that up is all the debates and discussions we're having about the future of this district, it's not just one element or the other. They're combined. And how we handle those combined elements will influence how this district thrives going forward. If there are no questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Property and Finance, Mr. Desai.
No report for tonight. Our next meeting is Tuesday, February 18th, 5 p.m. here in the cafeteria.
Thank you. Mrs. Fryrick, LIU.
Yeah, you have before you the highlights from the LIU board meeting of February 4th, 2025. Always interesting to see who's coming and going. And the Joint Operating Authority will have a meeting coming up in April sometime. And for my York Adams Academy report, again, I would emphasize it was really good at our graduation. We had 92 students who were eligible to graduate in our winter graduation, and 72 of them actually showed up to walk that night, which made for a very crowded auditorium over at the York Learning Center. A lot of excitement, and we had 16 of those graduates were from York Suburban, and there's nothing better than looking out and watching a bunch of superintendents just beaming from ear to ear, like they had something to do with these kids graduating, which they did because they have made the school available and the program available to the community. And that concludes my report.
That's great. Thank you for that. Mr. Robinson, legislative update.
Thank you, Madam President. The moment none of you have been waiting for. Well, I'll proceed anyway. The Department of Education, I'm happy to report, has rejected the application of the Unbound Academy. The Academy sought to open a cyber charter school utilizing artificial intelligence in place of teachers. The governor's budget included additional support for public education. True to form and custom, one group of legislators is encouraged by the governor's budget proposals, and the other one regards it as irresponsible. It's too soon to place any bets on how close the General Assembly will come to meeting or missing the deadline to pass a budget. Included will be discussions for the base formula for regular cyber charter students, which I believe the governor is proposing be capped at $8,000, and tiered for special education students. Initial estimates on savings to public schools throughout the Commonwealth are somewhere north of $300 million. HB 201, permitting intermediate units to purchase land and/or facilities, passed the House of Representatives. Representative Hill Evans voted in favor. Our other representatives did not. Facilities funding borders on the anemic. And for those who did not attend the House Education Committee hearing on February 3rd, or were not glued to their computer terminals to watch the live stream, it contained fascinating testimony on student achievement and more accurate ways to determine them. And I would strongly recommend that live stream, if it's still available, to anyone who's interested in the subject. Not hinting anything, Dr. Furman. As one member of the committee observed, determining meaningful education policy requires a great deal more thought than measures to fix a pothole. And who says there's no wisdom in Harrisburg? If there's no questioning, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mrs. Kindig, is there a York Adams Tax Bureau report tonight?
Just a brief, we were able to have Nicole Fry, our Director of Accounting, attend the meeting last Monday in January. They elected their officers. The Tax Claim Bureau works on a calendar year, so they just elected their new officers for 2025. Overall earned income tax collections as a whole increased over 3%. However, they did say some districts did see a decrease in EIT collections, and as I had reported at the last Property and Finance, our district happens to fall in that category currently, but I'm hopeful that some of that is just a timing issue, and we'll start to see that as more collections come in, that we'll see an increase. That concludes my report.
Thank you for that. I have no report for the School of Technology this evening. We'd like to thank and recognize our visitors. Thanks all for attending. Board members, you have links there to upcoming events and meeting and committee meeting schedules. This brings us to our second opportunity for public comment. Public comment period is an opportunity to be heard by the board on agenda items or other items which may reasonably come before the board. Comments are to be directed to the entire board, not one individual board member, administrator, staff member, or the audience. Comments will be timed and limited to 3 minutes or less. Please note, board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during our meeting. When you hear your name called, please come forward. You do not need to state your name or address before sharing your remarks. Danny Barker, Spring Goodsbury Township. Excuse me. Thank you. Mary Beliveau, Spring Goodsbury Township. Hi, good evening, ma'am.
Thank you. I found it very interesting hearing your education experts say that the board allowed them to slow down and dig deeper to find the educational problems that they were having with students, and I thought it was excellent. And the same thing needs to be applied to this budget situation. Unfortunately, this board did not do any planning or foresight or have any planning and foresight in planning this $120 million budget. It's obviously not affordable. And for the first time since I've been coming to these meetings, in last February, I found out about the $120 million building project. For the first time this evening, Dr. Sullivan presented some information and dug deeper into the feasibility of the taxpayer base and the money available for this big project. It's just not affordable. We have in this district many, many retirees, and we had one person come up here this evening say they might have to move. This is very sad. When you have a very large majority of retirees in this district that cannot afford their taxes being raised, and yet they're going to be raised substantially because of the increase in costs. People are having trouble today even with their food budgets, let alone have their taxes increased. I see just no understanding or even from the board. I would ask you to take a look at it. It seems like tunnel vision. There hasn't been foresight and planning. Until this evening, for the first time, somebody did give some really good, solid things to think about with this board and moving forward with this project. Instead of planning your budget, everybody has to have a budget, you just move forward, straight forward. It was almost like tunnel vision to this $120 million project with no foresight at all. And in the meantime, the present buildings that were neglected as far as being updated and any things fixed in the buildings that needed to be done. You had an architectural expert who obviously ignored the ordinances when they spent millions of our dollars or trying to and planning this whole project. So they as a result, the zoning board turned them down, and now the board approved going forward with a $500 an hour attorney to appeal the denial of their variances, the 3 variances for this next. So I would ask that you reevaluate your budget so you don't take taxpayers off a deep cliff and move forward. So thank you very much. And reevaluate, dig deep.
Thank you.
Just like you did in the education. Do the same thing with the
Sanders,
budget.
Spring Goodsbury Township. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. I just want to remind everybody, we're in the business of education. That's where our money should be going. I re-listened to the last board meeting on January the 27th, and this is what my perception is. The superintendent, president, and vice president have put their egos ahead of everything else. Crabtree Rohrbaugh has put making money ahead of anything else. Our superintendent does not communicate clearly. He tries to confuse us by taking 20 minutes to explain something that could be done in 5 minutes. He is not trustworthy doing things without the full board's consent. We must remove him and replace him with a true leader. We need leaders. The president of the board only makes decisions with her emotions. Her decision on a new pool at this meeting was the babies born in York Hospital and UPMC today will be able to use that pool, and their children will be able to use that pool also. She is not a critical thinker. She must be removed. We have a vice president who thinks he's a comedian and a philosopher, but always makes it about himself. He has an exaggerated sense of self-importance. He needs to go. Our administration has handed over $1.7 million to Crabtree Rohrbaugh with nothing to show for it. They are tricksters. In the last meeting, they never once said the new pool will be $12 million. Rather, they said the delta is $8 million over and over again. They must be removed and replaced with an unbiased third-party consultant. But I am standing and delivering some good news for our community. There are 4 board seats up for the election. Our group will be putting forth 4 people who will lead our district to a new level of honesty and greatness. We intend to restore the power to the taxpayers and the teachers. We will put money first towards the education of our students rather than new buildings. We will make this happen together. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy Schaefer, Spring Garden Township. Hi, good evening again.
Good evening. Excuse me. I'd like to thank each and every one of you who are here tonight who did show up and participated in such an important vote. Casting your vote is a critical part of the process as you contemplate with discernment and care the future of this district. Thank you again.
Thank you. Board members, any recognitions, comments for the good of the order at all? I would just like to say hats off.
Wanted to
Sure.
thanks the science high school students who participated in the elementary school science night. So that was very, very well planned. As each year they add a different flavor to the mix of the rooms, so the kids thoroughly enjoyed it. So
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? I just wanted to say hats off to the winter athletes, basketball, swimming, and wrestlers who are about to go into postseason play. Good luck, best wishes in postseason. Anybody have anything else? Okay, if not, we can stand adjourned. Oh, sorry. No, Mrs. San Martin, sure.
Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to say a big thank you to the high school teachers who stood here and coordinated with the middle school last week to get those 8th graders introduced to what high school is like and what courses were offered here. I think it was very well attended, and it was nice for the future 9th graders just to see and be in the building and see what was offered. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of the teachers who participated in that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for bringing that up as well.
I just want to say there are 2 great comedians here tonight, and I'm only one of them. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we can be adjourned. Thanks, everybody.